What's up, guys? This is my thoughts on the new internet age of entrepreneurship. I remember being 4 years old in the library reading books on business and how to form a company and how to do this and that and the third. My grandparents took me up to the library and then got all the way home, read the whole damn book, page to page, or something like that, rather, like put a lot of time into it, like 3 months into my business plan, and reading books and stuff, and they wouldn't sign the paperwork for me to form my company because apparently at that time in the history of the United States, you have to be 18 years old, and still today, you have to be 18 years old to form a legal business entity in the United States. Uh, that's why, as a teenager, I had to resort to selling dope to make money. You could do like certain things, like I just didn't want to fuck up my reputation with the IRS or the tax man and the business the business administration. Um, if they have a small business administration, why don't they have a big business administration? Because I personally own a big business and I still don't know who the fuck to talk to about my shit. Is like you have to figure all that shit out for yourself. Is almost like they don't want you to get ahead. And is like kids like 18 years old are going out, you know, maybe they borrow a couple $100 from their parents to form their LLC, or they go get a job for like a couple months to afford the come up for their business, you know, which is what I did. I worked for 4 to 5 years before I started my business. I got my first job when I was 15 years old, and was always about my money. So I don't want to hear shit about, oh, I couldn't have done it without you, blah, blah, blah. Because since day one, I wanted to own my own business. So my opinion on the new age of entrepreneurs is pretty much 80% of the entrepreneurs today would not have turned out to be entrepreneurs if it wasn't for this cozy era where everything is safe to be rich. And I'm going to put it to you that way because, ladies and gentlemen, I grew up in a time when it wasn't as safe. ADT home security didn't really come out big time until like the year 1998 to 2000, 2001, 2002. Especially like GPS locating systems that today are automatically built into smartphones. Today is automatically built into smartphones, and especially like apps like Facebook have like everything has like GPS locating like systems. So back in the day, if you were rich and stuff in your mattress full of $100 bills, you're like a target. And everyone knew that. And my grandfather told me, you really don't want to be rich, bud. You don't want to own your own business. You want to be like, just keep quiet, and don't get in too much, don't make too much a fuss of yourself, and you'll be all right. But for me, I wanted to be rich by any means necessary. And for us, back in the day, it was like a race to the top to belong to a community, that like a gated community, so that the lower class people couldn't find you. We're not talking about like working class people starting trouble. We're talking about like the scum of society, like would like fucking kill you for your fucking money. And even that, it still like exists today, and that just goes to show how much it existed 30 years ago. You know, I turned 31 this year, and you know what I'm saying? I turned 31 this year, and back in my day, in the history of my business career, it was not as safe. You know, if you're at the playground and like a car pulls into the playground, you take a look at your friends and you go, all right, guys, let's get out of here. And like, you could wind up getting fucking kidnapped. You could get fucking robbed. You can get your house broken into. Shit like that still happens today, even with home security and shit like that. So it really goes to show how much it was happening like back in the day. You know, it doesn't really happen that much anymore, but it was really happening like back in the day. You know, is like a major fucking big deal today versus like back in the day versus today of like sanctuary and peace of mind. You know, is like a race to that $10 million marker to get like a bodyguard or like to buy like a house in like a gated community. You know, like for me right now, I live in a pretty safe community. You know, I live in like, you know, I have cameras on my house and shit like that. And, you know, of course, like the new age of like firearms and self home defense mechanisms is like a hell of a lot different now than it was back then. You know, nowadays you can get your hands on some serious firepower. Back then it was like the meta. We had like those long rifles with like the wooden grips on them, you know, the long wooden rifles with like the wooden grips on them. There wasn't very much in the way of like fancy, like advanced, like weaponry. That's what we had in the house back then, was like wooden rifles from like, you know, like, and then they started modernizing weaponry to look more like military style weaponry, because that's what people wanted, you know, the laws of supply and demand. And then of course, you know, the mafia was a big thing back then. So what I did in the 90s was I started a gang. You know, it was like me and my friends were like a fucking gang, you know. And you know, regardless of, yeah, the gang is, you know, me and my friends were like a gang. You know, I started a gang, you know. And so pretty much, you know, and then if you could get some like mafia ties going on and put in some dirt for the mafia, that was like the best way to go back then, which I never did anything like that. But, you know, if you could like put in some like dirt for the mafia, they will protect you and shit. And, you know, nowadays the mafia is like not even an issue. Not, I mean, not an issue, but the mafia is like not even like a thing, you know, is like, man, I mean, times have truly changed. I'm not calling anyone a fucking pussy for sure, because I also remember being a little bit scared to be an entrepreneur. Being like 3, 4 years old, going door to door, like knocking door to door, asking people to cut their grass. You know, it was like different times back then, children. Before smartphones and before you missed the party by like 10 years. You know what I'm saying? You guys missed, if you're like between the under the age of 25, you missed the party by like not very much. You know what I'm saying? And pretty much, you know, goddamn. Um is like, you know, um, it was different times back then. You know what I'm saying? And I'm willing to bet that 80+ percent of these entrepreneurs that are entrepreneurs today wouldn't have been entrepreneurs back in my day. You know, I'm born at like the perfect time to make like some buku fucking bucks because I have that old school hustle where back in the day you have to like work your fucking ass off to make like 10 million bucks. Nowadays you put in like an eighth of the effort to make like fucking uh you put in like an eighth of the effort to make like you know the same amount of money, you know. And it's like something wrong with the younger generation, man. Like they act like something can't happen to them or something. And I'm not putting threats out there. I don't got no problems with nobody. You know, I'm a very peaceful person. You know what I'm saying? I stand up for myself, but I'm a very peaceful person. You know, I'm not saying you're a fag. I'm not saying you're like, I'm just saying that there's something wrong with you. You know, you fucking act like something can't happen to you. You know, because when I was growing up, like something could still happen to you. You know, that's the world that the older generation is like trapped in. You know, the world where something could really actually like fucking bad happen to you. And that's all I came here to say is like, we live in a different world nowadays with smartphones and GPS tracking. Find my iPhone. If a motherfucker kidnaps you, all you have to do is call the police department and they'll find out your last location. And they'll find out who the fuck did it. You know. And, yeah, it's fucked up, but, you know, it's like some fucked up shit. You know. That, like, it's like some fucked up shit. Most people from this new generation don't get it or something. That respect your elders, you know, because we come from different times. And, pretty much, you know, don't be a fucking, you know, don't look at the older generation like they're a bunch of cowards for not having their own business. Or like, don't look at like your parents like they're schmucks or something for not having their own business. Because we are the first generation where it's technically safe to be an entrepreneur. You know, um, is like, you know what I'm saying? Is just fucking, we come from some deep, dark times. Actually, those deep, dark times were not like back in the wilderness where we had to fight grizzly bears. It was like cannibals breaking into your house and fucking killing you, eating you, and taking everything that you fucking had. In like a bad case scenario. You know, in like a worst case scenario, you know, like shit, like Jeffrey Dahmer's and Wayne Gacy's and fucking devils of the world existed everywhere. Because if you could transform yourself, or if you were just like a sick motherfucker, you were at an advantage, you know, because the world was like a nasty place. And so that's all I'm saying is respect your elders. Don't think that just because the older generation is like, we look at the older generation and we say like, oh, I would do anything to not be like them. But back in their day, being an entrepreneur was not exactly optimal. You know, a millionaire's born like every day with the internet. And you just gotta Google it. If you want to know something, fucking Google it. Some people are still stupid to not have like a computer in their house. Everything I do is like on the computer. You know, I make like millions of dollars at the push of a button on the computer. But motherfuckers don't know how to fucking do it. And I won't talk about it because that's inviting competition. And I'm sorry, I love you guys, but I won't divulge my method. I do sell coaching though. I will guide you at a rate of like $10,000 a day. You know what I'm saying? So let me know. Because I'm more than happy to help, but it's on a case-by-case basis. I sell a product called Business in a Box. It's $10,000. I'll deliver a framework of a business directly to your front door for $10,000. And teach you how to become rich, basically. The guarantee is if you're not satisfied within a year, you get your money back. So that's like one of my advertisements is my own personal product I sell called Business in a Box is $10,000 and I'll teach you how to be rich for $10,000. But I can't make a video talking about it. It really is on a case-by-case basis. You know. So, hope you guys still love me because I love you. And like the video, subscribe to the channel, respect your elders, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.